Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X research and professional physicist. And today I'd like to bring to you another one of my articles. This one is entitled, How is the Solar Wind Produced? Now, as detailed in article 168, entitled Electrical Sun and Toroidal Envelopes, the Sun, like all other isolated objects in the universe, forms a negative layer around itself. In the Sun, this layer is called a corona. The Sun does this because there is a charge separation interaction acting on matter in the universe. And this causes protons and electrons to repel until they have reached a certain distance from each other. Now, as detailed in Article 171, the continuous Big Bang, and Article 174, where does the strong force come from? This charge separation interaction appears when photons move through high electric fields to split into their constituent particles, i.e. a proton and an electron. And the photon energy goes into giving each particle a new characteristic called charge separation, associated to a short-range interaction with the same name. So what we have is that photons are actually made out of particles, and these particles have mass and charge, and but it's not seen. None of these are seen when they are inside the photon. It's only when the photon moves through a strong electric field that the particles appear. They actually are split apart, and therefore what we have then is a proton and an electron. And this means that matter actually comes out of light or photons. But it's not just the particles themselves and their characteristics, it's also the interactions between the particles, namely gravity, the electrostatic interaction, and the new one, the charge separation interaction. The electrostatic interaction will cause a proton and electron to be attractive to each other, but the charge separation will cause them to repel. However, the charge separation is a short-range force, so it only acts within a short distance. After the particles are beyond that distance, then they will again be attracted due to the electrostatic potential. So all of these manifest. However, the strong force is already a short-range force, and that causes protons to be attracted to protons, and therefore they are a manifestation of the charge separation interaction, which we would expect between like charges, that is for protons to attract each other. Now, although the charge separation interaction is a short-range interaction, it manifests itself on a macroscopic level as well. And it's also because the large objects are still made out of small particles and atoms, and because this is what causes matter to be separate, and that's what they're made of, this manifests into the larger objects. So what we have in the universe is atoms, which are made of an inner nucleus and electrons outside the nucleus. And here we see already this is a manifestation of the charge separation interaction, and this is the reason why we have protons here and electrons there. If it was just electrostatic interaction acting between these two particles, we'd expect protons and electrons to join together. But they don't, they stay separate. The same thing happens with all objects from large to small in the universe that are isolated, that is in outer space. So a galactic nucleus will form a negative layer around it, so will a quasar, which is a forming galaxy. And the Sun and all planets will do the same. Now the Sun produces energy as a result of this interaction as well. And the Sun is made up of several layers. It has its inner layer, and the surface of that layer is the photosphere, and that is the positive layer, it's the nucleus. The sun acts like a super atom in that it has a positive nucleus and it has electrons, a negative layer on the outside. Now in the sun there's also a type of transition zone between the negative and the positive, and this is called the chromosphere. And in the chromosphere we may have a mixture of protons and electrons moving in a chaotic sort of way, up and down, and but what we also have is the two interactions, the charge separation and the electrostatic interaction, play against each other all the time. It's a balancing act. And in the sun, sometimes, or actually often, the electrostatic interaction wins and manages to pull ions from the surface of the sun, and they move towards the negative particles. This causes actually a discharge and therefore a current flowing from the surface of the sun towards the corona, and this will flow through the chromosphere. And whenever charged particles flow, they are accelerated, and whenever charged particles are accelerated, photons are created. That's called bremsstrahlung. And when photons are created and they move through a strong enough electric field, and we certainly have strong electric fields in an electrical object like the sun, then the photons are split apart into their constituent particles, and so we have matter creation occurring. It then will quickly separate, so we'll have a central positive zone where ions are forming, fusion may be taking place, heavier elements are forming, but we have a positive center surrounded by a negative layer. Now, if this forms close enough to the sun's surface, which is positive, it may be pulled back towards the sun's inner positive layers, and then it will go to replenish the ions in the sun's core. But if it is further into the corona, it will be repelled, and it may then be ejected outwards into space. It's repelled due to the charge separation interaction, because now we have positives surrounded by a whole lot of electrons, and they will tend to separate, and this will cause, in a lot of cases, this matter to be ejected outwards. And these positive ions will have a layer of negative electrons on the outside, and they will be ejected out into space, and they will form the solar wind. So this is how the solar wind forms. Now, if there are any stellar cores in the sun's corona, they may also be repelled at this time and thus move away from the sun. And because stellar cores have positive inner cores, they will be repelled by the corona, just like the CME material, and therefore be ejected. And this will be explained a bit better in my next article, article 176. So in conclusion, the sun produces a solar wind as a result of a balancing act between the charge separation interaction and the electrostatic interaction, as well as the fact that photons split into their oppositely charged constituent particles when moving through a high enough electric field. This is Dr. Claudia Albers, Planet X physicist. Thank you for watching.